when I was a teenager, my mom had to move my car in the driveway one day, and she cranks up the car, and I had apparently left Thingfish in my CD player. And she walked back in the house, and she just looked at me and she said, "What in the hell are you listening to?"
Talk to the mayor about problems with the plague. The mayor, he had to agree to pay. You know, I was quick and picked a pipe and led the way. Oh, I thought we had a deal, you reneged. Guess I'll have to come to your house and take them away. Go ahead while you look at me, lay your blame. One by one, their charms on air. It didn't take too long. One by one, again and again, as I played this song.
So he sends me lyrics, write a song. We're like, oh, that was cool. That felt good. Let's do that again. And for about 2 years, we were putting out like a song a week, it seemed like. And I would just, write in my living room, just kind of learning Logic better. And the sound started getting better, and the songs started getting better. We started getting a lot of confidence, and I don't know, we wrote like 50 songs, and some of them we thought were pretty good. And we're sort of like, well, what do we do with this? I'm not really looking to go on tour. I'm not looking to put a band together. We did try that. I know you know that, right? I played with Brooks and a couple other guys in Atlanta. I won't do it without Brooks. And so it was I kind of started thinking, well, this is great. It would be great if other people played these songs, if we could get them to other people, because I thought some of them were pretty good sort of standards for different styles. We wrote in all kinds of different styles. I got a bluegrass tune, all kinds of things. Anyway, we started to get to the point where we're like, well, all right, what's the point? What are we doing here? And I found this weird story called the Sonora Aero Club, which apparently is maybe true. Something that happened in the 1850s out in Sonora, California. The story is of this guy, this real person that's definitely documented, named Charles Delschow. And he came over from Prussia and came to Houston. And then soon after, and there's not much about it, but soon after went to go for the gold rush, went out to California to find his fortune. And while out there, apparently met these guys. And these guys were like these German engineers that were building flying machines. And he basically hung out with them, and they would have these meetings where they would be pitching each other their machines. And apparently, supposedly, some of these were built and actually flew. And maybe they developed their own, even this gas made from mercury that actually lifted these things off the ground. And there were stories of incidences and deaths, and who knows? It's very almost psychedelic. And so what Charles did was documented it, and then painted or drew these flying machines. It's very much the style is kind of H.G. Wells-ish style, and whatever. That was like a 5-year span. He comes back to Texas, apparently loses his wife and son, ends up living with his daughter and her husband, living in this attic, gets old, and towards the end of his life, apparently feverishly starts writing everything he can think of, living in the attic and drawing it all out. And then whatever happens, I don't know, but this book, which exists and been in art galleries, was found after a fire, and I believe in Kansas or Kentucky. I forget that part of the story. It's so fuzzy. And was found and saved and went on to become this, and you can look it up. It went on and see all the art. This really sort of like myth, like, well, what really happened here? Is this real? Did this really happen? It's just in this guy's mind, because no one really knows. Apparently, there's stories of that this group ended up going to like Venezuela and were part of like the Second Reich and that whole thing. So it's really kind of weird. So I went to Ram and I'm like, let's write a concept piece about this story, because we can do whatever we want. There's no sure enough story here, and we can really make it up. And it took him a little while to kind of wrap his head around it. And then one day he finally looks at the material that I sent him, and he's like, oh, this is really colorful. And Raman likes imagery and color, and he's very good with that. And so he writes that song, Sonora. And I wanted to write it to be like an opening of a musical. So what I've envisioned with Sonora is sort of an Americana rock musical told through a live band. I like the concept of the actors being the band, just because that works with what I know. I don't know how to write script. I've written out some ideas of where the story can go. It's meant to be like a 90-minute, one-act show that tells the story of Charles Delshow, this guy who was a painter and apparently an old butcher, and looking for, like, having this brush with greatness, coming really close to something just fantastical and special, and then, of course, just sort of dying and at the end and losing his mind, and I just found it so fascinating, and that's the story. The story that we're trying to build on there is that he comes and he goes, he meets these people, and there's a whole section of songs told by the different members of this group, and then eventually comes back towards the end of his life, and just this clear arc, and I'd like to develop it. And I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people in the business. My wife and I are patrons at a few theaters, and we've met a lot of people over the years. And of course, I made all those contacts through the Jeffries podcast that I still sort of hanging on to if I ever need them. And so I've always, I'm sort of at this point in my life, like artistically, like, what do I want to do? I'm not going to go be a gigging musician anymore. If I did, I would have done it for the past 20 years, and I haven't. I want to write something special, and that I think is special, and really develop it and somewhere, maybe in Atlanta, maybe up here, and just get some backing for it and really do it right. So you're going to have to move is basically what I'm saying, because
it sounds so good. I love the idea of it, and I love the idea of the band being the focal point of it,
and the actors, yeah,
yeah.
Like my opening idea is that there's this fire. I also want a lot of projection and light, cool lighting, but like projection, especially of these flying machines, and it'd be really cool to get into like 3D holograms, but whatever. The opening I see is that there's this fire, and this guy walks on stage, and under the spotlight is this book, and he picks up this book, which is his book, and he sits it down on the piano, and he sits down and he opens the book and just starts playing that opening riff of Sonora, and then the show just goes. And then out steps Charles Delshow, as maybe the lead singer, and introduces himself and that's what that opening song is, that song Sonora. And then if you noticed, I don't know if you got to the end of it, but the last song is a gospel-y version of that same theme. It's the idea that, all right, he's gone now. He's off to heaven, which is Sonora again, this fantastical place that discovered. So let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So what time do you want me to be there?
What time is it now?
Yeah, I'm central, so I have an extra hour. So that's good. Man, that is so awesome. And I didn't realize that you and your wife were so active theater goers. That's your thing. That's where we spend all our time and like I say, money. We have ways of getting to these shows for less,
and we usually skip the big Broadway shows. I find they're not that great for what I'm looking for out of theater. We really like off-Broadway more. You'll find much more richness and better crowds, and the best things I've ever seen are off-Broadway. There's some great things on Broadway, but not a lot.
Has the landscape of it changed after the pandemic?
Yeah, the difference right now is, it's still hurting a bit. And so most shows are, and I guess they always were, are geared for tourists.
Right.
So you get a lot of jukebox musicals, which I'm just not interested in.
Yeah.
I don't need to go hear Britney Spears, concert told in song and dance. That's not interesting. But there's a few special shows out there. But it's a golden age of plays. The plays on Broadway and off-Broadway. The plays on Broadway are phenomenal. Really special, daring, challenging shows. There's actually a musical route right now based on Days of Wine and Roses that you should check out musically. It's really special. They're not songs, they're like art songs. That the whole thing is like a dance that just moves along. It's so unusual, and audiences struggle with it because it is not for everybody. But musically, it's like, wow. Very, very, very cool stuff. Yeah, get up here and we'll take you. All kinds of things.
Well, you were talking about projection earlier, and I feel so out of the game as far as kind of what is happening in the tech piece of all of these shows now. Is projection a big thing now?
It can be. It can be. Some of the production values are phenomenal and really, really just cool. Just really interesting. So yes, they absolutely are. I'm also fortunate to, so my camp is at Purchase College, which is a State University of New York school, and Purchase is known for its arts. It's like the art school of the New York schools. And their drama and theater and music departments are really, and dance are really, really spectacular. And a lot of famous people have come out of there. Regina Spektor was a student there. There's a bunch. And especially in drama, Edie Falco, Stanley Tucci came out of there, and the tech group there is really special. So, I've not really gotten with them, but I do have friends in that group over there. But I guess what I'm getting at is a lot of those guys are also doing things on Broadway. The guy there has been lighting the Super Bowl for the last 2 decades.
Wow.
It's that kind of stuff. So I have access to these things. I just haven't had the project ready to bring. And Ram and I are about 4 or 5 songs away from finishing this. At least to get that set of songs. I know if it's going to develop, it'll change. Create a story, but I need help. I need help finding people who can write a story. I'm not that person, but I do have a lot of ideas. I've also got a connection over. You ever hear of Meow Wolf?
No.
Meow Wolf is this group. They're out in Vegas. They're out in Denver. There's one more. It's this trippy psychedelic. These places, like almost playgrounds you can go to, where it's all these different cool projections and lightings and things, interactive things that you can do on that psychedelic level. It's really, really cool and fun. You should check them out. And I have a good contact there, and so I'm sort of waiting to contact all these people because, as you know, I have no problem contacting people and asking for things. And
You just never. I'm the same way. Because what's the worst that can happen, right?
They just say no. My wife has a great phrase I use with my kids. You get 100% of what you don't ask for. And it's like with Howard, right?
That's it.
Like we had this song. I'm like, boy, I would love harmonica on this. And then I see him on Facebook, and I just reach out, and he says, super lovely man, and was happy to do it, and did an awesome job, and didn't phone it in, that's for sure.
He did not.
Really...
He is, I don't know if I told you, so we met last week, and I said, let's just plan on an hour, and I was asking him about his technique, his harmonica technique, and he was like, well, do you want me to demonstrate it for you? And I'm like, yes. So he grabs his harmonica and explains the technique, and he plays. So we finished the interview, turn off the recording, and we sat and talked for another hour.
Yeah.
And
when we first met, we were on the phone for a while. He was the first guy when the pandemic started. He was the first guy that I think I met his wife. I think she's in medicine or something. She's a scientist or something like that. But he said to me, "Oh, this is 2 years," when the pandemic was still new, and we were thinking, "Oh, this could be over in a month." He's like, "No, this is 2 years," and I was like, "Oh." And it was the first person that kind of got that into my head, and sure enough. But he was lovely. He called me, and we just chatted for a while, and he's a lovely man.
It's funny since, he connected me with Glenn Velez, and he's just sending me all these videos. He's like, "Here, check this out. Look, check this out." I mean, he sends me.
Let's get him in Sonora.
Yeah. Yes. Let's do it.
We'll do it in Chicago. I don't care.
Yeah, he's doing a few dates on the Prairie Home Companion reunion.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, nice. Yeah. He told me he's done like 50 episodes of that.
Wow.
Which I didn't realize.
Wow.
I mean, he has had a crazy career that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah. People don't even realize he was in the Flecktones.
Yeah, and then left them and went with Kenny Loggins. I was going to ask you about the podcast with Jeffrey. Did you do all the research for it?
No. I did none of the research. I was just tech, really, and producing. He, when that started, he was sort of a little lost and didn't really understand what a podcast was. And we sat down. Like, I have hours of tape of just me and him sitting and talking. And so finally he starts to get, we started off with, the idea was going to be that he was going to be kind of an acting coach. So we found this director and this actor of this very small off-Broadway thing that I had found because it was here in town, and we brought them on, and we liked it, and then he's like, "Okay, I think I get it," and then he starts reaching out to his famous friends, and then I'm all of a sudden inundated with like, "Oh, here, continue this conversation with Henry Winkler. Here, continue this conversation with Michael McKean, John Lithgow." Like, it was on and on. There's so many people that we never got on that I was emailing with. I have a ridiculous, contact list of people that I never, that I grew up watching, and it was nuts. And I keep forgetting some of the people we had on. I'll talk. I don't like to be a name dropper, but man, it was David Mamet, Jellica Houston, Ron Howard, Buscemi. And eventually, with the pandemic, we had to bring it online, and that was a struggle because Jeffrey's just not good with the tech, and there's only so much I could do from this distance. And I was learning how to make that work. We had this great Judd Apatow conversation, but so much of it connection was bad, and there's a lot that never came out. Judd Apatow never came out. Keegan-Michael Key never came out. There's a bunch. I had Paul Schaefer. That one came out, but sitting playing on my keyboard and talking about it. It's just nuts. It was really nuts. It was so nuts that it became completely normal.
Yes.
We went on Gilbert Gottfried's podcast in the city, and then went out to dinner. And so there's me and Jeffrey and Gilbert and their wives and Jeffrey's Gilbert co-host, and I'm just sitting at this restaurant in the city with these guys. It was just nuts. And
I bet it was fun to watch people walking by, and they're like, "What the hell's happening?"
Yeah, I remember looking at other tables, and people just kept looking over at us. And but I made Gilbert laugh, and that made me so happy.
You could say, "That's it. I've lived a good life."
I made Gilbert laugh, and once I made Michael Palin laugh. I think he was probably just being nice, but that's really all I've ever needed. Because I can make Brooks laugh. That's easy.
Yeah, it does. It doesn't take much. But when he does, it's worth it.
He's terrible.
I hate that guy.
Yeah.
I make jigsaw puzzles out of wood. I keep the blade sharp to cut them true. I make jigsaw puzzles out of wood. When I sweep the dust up, I think of you. I think of you. Pick a petal, make a wish, float putting flowers in a shallow dish. At the factory you thought a lot, while the kilns burn so hot. Dark-eyed juncos, a favorite bird. Oh, yes, you know I read your every word, your every word. Came back home. We getting tired of sailing alone. And your garden roses still bloom. You wanna dance, the devil's in the room. I hope you'll never say goodbye. I'll hold you close with all my might, with all my might. I made jigsaw puzzles out of wood. I keep the blade sharp to cut them true. I made jigsaw puzzles out of wood. When I sweep the dust, I think of you. I made jigsaw puzzles out of wood. I keep the blade sharp to cut them true. I made jigsaw puzzles out of wood. And when I sweep the dust up, I think of you. I think of you.
You know, the thing about the Grapes is, as much as we were from Atlanta, we were rarely there. We were such a road band
Yeah.
that we weren't part of the scene. Atlanta was almost like another stop for us.
Yeah.
It was a good stop for us, but it was another stop. It didn't, it was home and whatever, but we were doing 250 shows a year for all those years. It was heavy touring and just, 8 guys in a van and a truck following us or going ahead of us. But that was a hell of an experience for my 20s, just like joining and right on the road and nonstop.
All over the U.S.?
Pretty much. I mean, I think 44 states.
Wow, okay.
We were mostly southeast because, it made more sense. We would definitely come up northeast. We did real well in Colorado for a number of years. That was a good stop for us. In fact, for a while, we actually had the record at the, I don't know what it's called now, but the Double Diamond in Aspen, and we broke the record from like 2 weeks prior of a band called Eagles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But it was all, like, we would go out there on a spring break, and it was all kids from the Southeast. So they all knew us. And so all of a sudden, all those kids from all those Southeast colleges showed up. And I think the place held 350, and we put like 750 in there. It was nuts. So we played with, we came all of a sudden from Four Non Blondes, Linda Perry.
Oh, yeah.
She opened for us, and we did What's Going On with Her. We have a recording of that. It was nuts. And she loved Brooke Smith. She loved him.
I don't know why.
I don't either. I don't get it. Why does everybody like this guy?
Let's see if we can get her on for a moment and ask her, what was the deal with Brooks? Why did you like him so much?
Probably his bad attitude.
Yeah. I've noticed that he is very popular with young ladies. He has such a...
Okay, good. I assume he's going to listen to this. When we first went across the country in '96, when the Olympics were in Atlanta, we're out of here. So we went to California, and we didn't really do California and the Northwest, but we went across the country, and it was hilarious because it seemed like in almost every stop, a former girlfriend of Brooks's would show up and pledge her undying love for him, say, "I'll give it all up for you." And this kept happening. It was, and we're just like, what is going on? It was like the captain of the football team just coming through town, every time. And it was just hilarious. But yes, they I won't tell too many secrets, but I know a few things. But they love that guy. And again, I don't get it.
Well, I will admit that he kind of had that effect on me too. So I guess I can understand.
I met Brooks in college. He was my original keyboard hero. I would go see him play. Like, we became friends. We were friends in college. We became much better friends when he moved to Atlanta. And I would go see his band play. And they were a cover band of like prog rock. And I remember he would play. I remember they would play at Roundabout, and he would play bass guitar with his left hand. And so he was Chris Squire with his left hand and Rick Wakeman with his right hand. And I would just stand in front of him and just be like, I don't know what the hell's going on here. I know like 7 chords. I
have realized that I will never know fully the depths of his ability and talent, because every time when I think that I know it, he'll do something and I'll go, oh, okay, there's that too.
Yeah. Like if you guys are both in the Sonora project, who's playing bass?
I don't like when I heard him play bass on a video or a recording or something. I'm like, well, I'm never going to do this again in front of you.
Right.
What?
Yeah. Well, when we played, you played drums.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. So you met at school. Where did you go to college?
UNC Greensboro. We were both music majors there.
I've heard so many great things about that music school.
It's a phenomenal. I was very lucky to get in. I got in on one piece. I literally prepared one Rachmaninoff piece for a year, and that got me in. And then I proceeded to drop out after a semester and go watch the Grateful Dead a lot. So I wasn't really ready for college, but Brooks was great, and he had some great bands. Like I said, that's a band. It was one of the bands I would go see, and he was definitely more in tune with the scene than I was. I was like sort of head in the clouds. But it's a phenomenal music school, great faculty.
Yeah, I've just heard great stuff about UNC Greensboro.
Yeah,
when I was in high school, I was really close to transferring to North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem, and I did Brevard Music Center a couple summers, and just I have so much love for North Carolina.
Where are you from?
I'm from Atlanta.
Okay.
North of the city, Alpharetta.
Gotcha.
Are you from?
I'm from Long Island, New York.
From Long Island.
Yeah.
So why UNC Greensboro?
Well, one, they accepted me. I got to 11th grade, and my mother was like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I can play the piano. How about that? I auditioned at a bunch of different schools, and we just liked it. We went down there, and it just seemed to make sense. And I think, looking back, I was, and still am, a moron. Like, I didn't know what was going on in my life. I had no control. I was just sort of, I don't know what was, I don't understand how, when I come across a high schooler that seems to have, like my daughter, seems to know things. I didn't know anything, but I liked it, and I'm glad I went there. It definitely started a whole trajectory and path of my life that worked out for me. I have no idea what I'd be doing. It didn't work out. I've always landed on my feet pretty well. I don't really understand it. But
I can't believe that I managed to graduate from high school. I'm not joking.
I'm with you.
I had some moments where I'm like, I don't know if this is going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. I was only in the band room. That's all I ever wanted.
Me too.
To do. Yeah. Any other class was terrible, and I was wasting everyone's time.
Was it all piano? What all were you doing?
Well, I was doing like symphonic bands, so I was doing like mallets and stuff like that. But it started in junior. We had a junior high, 7 through 9, and I was in a music theory class, and they were doing like intervals and ear training. And I was just like, oh, yeah, easy. Because it was always in the key of C, right? So it was always C to something. And I'm like, oh, this is super easy. Because I've been playing piano since I'm 4. And so the teacher pulls me aside. He's like, we're going to switch you to band. Like, I've never done band. Did orchestra in elementary school. Played the viola. But, and then they brought me in and put me on the piano, and he found, whatever he could find that would go along with the pieces they were playing. And that's how that all started. And I loved it. I loved doing all that. I did marching band. I did all that in high school.
Did you do like full like percussion, learning rudiments and the whole deal?
No, I didn't do percussion. I just did mallets.
Okay.
Yeah. It was me and the other piano players all doing mallets.
Yeah. Now I was a drumline instructor for a long time, so I have a lot of experience where you have a bunch of piano players that want to be involved, and
right.
that's kind of a good place for them, as long as they can understand the technical part of transferring that to the keyboard mallet instrument. You're golden.
Which I'm sure I didn't, but we just sort of winged it, and you've made sense to us.
Yeah,
right. There it is. There's the piano keyboard. We can do this.
Yeah.
It's not like the pieces were that hard. I always loved playing Sleigh Ride. Sleigh Ride was a super fun one.
It's a good xylophone part.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My son he's practicing for his senior recital right now at LSU.
Oh my God, he's a senior.
Yeah, and it is just super mallet heavy, a lot of 4-mallet marimba stuff, and I think the percussion landscape has changed a lot too since we were his age or even younger.
So.
Yeah, I think it's so much more demanding now than it was. Just the literature for it is so demanding, especially for mallet players. It's crazy. How did you start playing with the Grapes?
I was at North Carolina. I started playing I got into that whole Bohemian Grateful Dead land, and I met some lovely people that I'm still friends with, and we started playing in a band, and that went great, just party band. And then this guy from Charlotte had this band called Liquid Sound. His name is Cito, and he's still playing, and he, I don't know, found out about me, got in touch with me. I don't remember exactly, but we started jamming, and then I went on the road with them, which was like, weekends. We'd go to like Charlotte or Roanoke or, not too far. A few gigs here and there, and it was great. And I did that with them for about 1.5 years. Brooks eventually got in that, so that was my beginning of really playing with Brooks, and then we played in Atlanta, or we were about to share. So we do these things where you share gigs, right? Mm-hmm. They would come to where we were good, and we would go to where they were doing well. And it was a band called the Grapes that we'd never really heard of, and we did those shows. And then they asked me to come to Athens to do some tracks. They were putting together an album. I'm like, sure. And when I got there, they said, actually, would you join us? Would you drop out of school, move to Atlanta, and go on the road? And I said, yes. Why not? Because I was, barely in college at that point. Like thinking back, and I can barely remember going to any classes. I'm sure I did go to classes, but I still will have dreams where I wake up like, oh my God, I haven't gone to a class all year, and that's how I see it. And so I did. So I packed up, and I literally it was like within a week or so, I said goodbye to everybody, packed up my stuff, and I had 2 cats, and we just moved to Atlanta, and I went on the road. And that's how that happened. And right away, moved down the next day to a gig, and just nonstop.
Wow. Where did you live in Atlanta?
I was right there in Little 5 Points area.
Okay.
That's where I always lived for the most part. And I was either in Kemmler Park or Inman Park. I spent all my time down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where were they playing in Atlanta? Where were their big venues?
Well, the Variety became our big venue, but we played everywhere. We played the Roxy, the old Roxy. Mm-hmm. We played Center Stage. We played, and then we'd also play Smith's. I'm sure there's others. Well, so originally, before I joined, the Grapes were sort of known for playing. Do you remember the PETA?
Yeah.
So they played the PETA. They played the urban. No, there's this center, this arts center that they were known for playing. I played with them once there with Wavy Gravy.
Really?
Yeah. And they had this, they were sort of the popular jam hippie band at the time. And they started as a Grateful Dead cover band called the Dreadful Grapes, which I think, I'd always heard it was Bill Graham, but I think it was actually Ken Kesey introduced the Grateful Dead as one night. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Dreadful Grapes. We'll play on Grateful Dead. So then they started writing their own songs, and they dropped the Dreadful, to which apparently a local critic said they dropped the wrong part of their name. But and then they started to get serious about it, and then I showed up, I guess about a year or so later, and then we just went hardcore. And it went well for a while. It was 91, 92, came out with an album that did pretty well. We were totally in that scene with, Widespread before Widespread really hit it. Fish opened for us in their first gig in Atlanta. Stuff like that. It was pretty wild, and things were looking good, but I love those boys. It was a little dysfunctional.
Yeah.
A band like that is basically a marriage.
Well, I think every band maybe even needs a tiny bit of dysfunction to allow it to have a little bit of an edge.
Yes, and we did. I don't know if you've ever really seen the Grapes, but what we were really good at was getting on stage and blowing it all out. Jam bands sort of get a reputation for being light. We were anything but light. We were in your face, passionate, emotional. We loved our ballads. Our ballads were heavy. And I always liked that about it. It was a great lesson for me in learning how to play and be a musician. Those guys definitely played, from the heart. And while it wasn't the most, you're used to playing with some really technically gifted people, these guys were not. But what they did bring was something you just can't learn. You just have to be that. And they would give 110% every night. But there was sweat and you felt something if you liked this band. So it was definitely I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
I'm certainly glad I did it. It led to other things, and
I think the first time I met you was I think you guys were doing a rehearsal leading up to one of the variety shows.
God, I remember that.
Lisa and I stopped by there to see you.
Crossover.
Yep, that's it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and Brooks and I were embarrassed because we didn't even play one of our songs when you were there. We played a cover tune.
That's right.
It wasn't good.
I forgot about that.
It was so bad. I'm that's not what we want Brad to see.
Have you met Mark Mundy? I know you've probably heard about Mark Mundy a lot.
It's funny. I'm not sure we've actually ever met. It's sort of like you and I for a long time. We hadn't met, but we felt like we knew each other.
I felt like you and I had a long-distance relationship with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not quite the same with Mark, but we're certainly aware of each other through, of course, Brooks. And, Mundy's a guy that I've been dying to play with and work with. I'd love to get down to his studio.
He was with the Shake Dancers for a while.
Yes. Oh, you know what? Then maybe, I don't know if he was there when we played, because we played with them a lot, and I jammed with them a lot. I don't think he was there when I jammed with them.
I don't think he was with them for a long time. And then, of course, he has a very untalented brother as well.
Yeah, he's all right.
First time I played with Mark, his parents owned a music store, and I went to play with him at Jody and got there, and Matt was there. And I became a little slightly terrified to play because there's Matt Mundy. I've listened to this guy play for years, and he was just so laid back.
First time I saw ARU was at a frat, because we were playing another frat. It was probably UGA. And Ramen and I were like, hey, let's go over and check out ARU. And we go and we get right in front of Matt. And I had never seen these guys. So that's my first experience, just standing literally 2 feet from Matt Mundy with this mandolin in my face and just being like, why am I doing this? Why is anyone interested in this? This was ridiculous. Yeah, that was a special time coming to Atlanta and experiencing those guys. And I got my Bruce time because we toured with him a good bit, and he kind of took me under his wing for a little while. I was fortunate to be one of those people that he took under his wing, and at some point he's like, you're driving us around now. So I was his driver basically for that tour, and we were doing ridiculous things and going to dog races and just ridiculous times, and very fortunate that I got my Bruce time.
I only met him a handful of times, but just a colorful character, and the the Bruce Hampton School of Music that happened in Atlanta is pretty incredible.
A lot of people are very thankful for their experience with him, or much, much, much greater than I.
Did you do a lot of classical music playing piano?
You know, I started with a teacher who was, we'd call it classical. He used to write in Clavier magazine. I don't know if you remember that whole magazine back then. He has this famous, he has this article that I got out there all about pedaling. I always remember that. He was like, on the piano. But anyway, so yes, and I was young. He didn't want to start me. He was teaching my sister, who was a little older. She wasn't so into it, but I was really into it. And so he took me kind of young. And what he did so well was let me play what I also wanted to play. And so, I'm a kid from Long Island, so, definitely wanted to be playing Billy Joel. And I really got into Scott Joplin for a while. Like, I was really into that. In 6th grade, I could, rip off Maple Leaf Rag, where people would be like, what is that? How are you doing that? And it was all muscle memory. I think I can still play it. And, but I love doing this. So he let me do stuff that excited me. And then we did classical, but not hardcore. He was good in that he saw that this kid needs to be enjoying it.
Yeah.
To keep going. And I was into it. I was a pretty good student for him. And so I did. I took lessons from like 4 to 13, took a break. That's when I started playing in bands with my friends. And we had we were very heavily influenced by Rush, like everybody else was at the time.
Sure.
And we were a trio. So it was, it was guitar, keyboards, and drums. And that was great. And then in 11th grade, when it was like, oh, okay, you're going to go be a music major, I got with this. He was going to teach me again. And then he got sick, and he referred me to this insane Russian, and I say insane, like insane player, Russian teacher, and we really just worked on this ridiculously hard Rachmaninoff piece for a year, and that worked.
Can you still play it?
I can play like the first through like 2 measures.
Yeah.
I can't even find it. I have trouble finding the piece to listen to it. It's this weird, obscure Rachmaninoff piece. But it was cool.
Were your lessons intense?
They were, and I'll go to my grave saying this is the best piano player I've ever seen. He just was incredible, and it was just like one of those crazy notey pieces, that it was just hard. It was just very, very hard, and I was never great at that stuff. I went back to, so I dropped out UNCG to join the Grapes, and I was in my senior year or close to it. And when I was 40, we had a child. We still do. She was like 2. And it kind of hit me like, I don't love not being a college graduate. And I don't want her growing up knowing that I'm not a college graduate. It just meant something to me. So I enrolled at New Jersey City University, which is nearby. They had a music program. And I had to start over completely. They gave me no credits. Because it was 25 years. And so I went through it again, but this time it was amazing because I was like, I want to learn. I would sit up front and center for all these classes, and I was into it. But I had to start over with classical music again, and that was really great for me. I'd be, just playing a lot of Bach and playing a lot. So my senior recital was all American composers. That was my theme. So it was like Copland, Joplin, Barber, I forget who else. And then because I was an education major, I didn't have to do a full hour. I just had to do like a half an hour. And then the second half, I could do whatever I wanted. So I did a Frank Zappa ensemble.
Really?
And I had these great players, really, really fantastic players at the school. And I was like, I want to do from Roxy and Elsewhere, Village of the Sun, that trio, Kidness Arf, and Don't You Ever Watch That Thing. And I'm like, how do I find this? I can't find it. I'm not going to transcribe this. This is ridiculous. So I contacted my good friend Vaylor Trucks. It's like, Vaylor, do you know where I can find this? He's like, no, but I'll do it for you. I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm like, well, what would you charge for it? He's like, no, I just want to do it. He did it in like 2 weeks.
Unbelievable.
I have it all if you ever want it. It's incredible. And he would like get excited about finding these ridiculous, 3 set measures of, crazy time changes. And so I got to, so sure enough, and we had like 11 rehearsals with this really, really talented band, great mallet player. And we just kick butt on it. It's all on YouTube. I can send it to you. It's
I'd love to see it.
It was not bad, not too bad. We were really into it. But just that, I've just been so fortunate to meet people like yourself, you're also pretty darn good. I don't know if you know that.
No, I don't believe any of that.
And Brooks and Vaylor. Vaylor's ridiculous. I don't know if you watch his show. Do you watch his show?
Yeah, it's great.
Incredible.
Well researched, well presented. I love the concept of it too.
So well done. How that's not 1 million subscribers, I don't get. It's so well done.
It's almost like a music appreciation required viewing.
What he does so well is it's not a review of these things. It's personal, and that's what makes it so much more engaging. I don't care what you think about these songs. I care what you think about these songs in relation to who you are. That's more interesting, and he does that so beautifully. Yeah,
you could go and find 50 videos about every one of those releases and basically hear the same thing, and there's no personal connection to it at all. Yeah, it's great. So I came to Zappa when I was in middle school and high school. I got heavily into Steve Reich, to John Cage, Elliott Carter, very heavily into contemporary classical music. Mm-hmm. And I learned about Zappa because of him being influenced from Edgar Varese, and all these 20th century composers. So I felt a little late to the game on getting to Zappa, but when I did, I was like, oh my gosh.
What was your introduction album?
Joe's Garage.
Oh, totally, right? I knew you were going to say it. It's exactly what it is. I think for a lot of people.
Joe's Garage, and then just hearing, it's interesting to he's like Satie if he listened to doo-wop music or something. There's something really interesting to me about Zappa.
I recently went for the YouTube subscription. Really one of the best things I've done, because I never really was a YouTube watcher, but it's you look at one video and all of a sudden the algorithm changes, and so I did watch something with Zappa, and then now I've got all this Zappa coming in, and I just keep watching all these old interviews, especially interviews with people he played with, and hearing about that. But it's always fascinating. I remember where I was when Zappa died. We were on the road. We were stuck in New Mexico with a broken transmission, in a really terrible place to be stuck, and got to the hotel, turned on the TV, and Zappa was dead. We got that.
Yeah.
But that's certainly not why we should be talking about Zappa. But Joe's Garage, I think, is the entry point for a lot of people of our generation.
Yeah, I had someone play it for me. But then I did 2 summers at the Chautauqua Institution in New York, and a friend of mine there played the Yellow Shark album, and I was like, oh, okay, so there's this too. Right. And just completely fell in love with it. Yeah.
And then you crave it. Then you start to crave it. You go through that phase where it's all you really want to listen to.
Yeah. What is it about? I mean, it's hard to quantify what you love about it, but what is it that appeals to you?
I think, while I do love prog rock or modern classical or all of these things, I think I definitely, at my heart, I'm very much a kind of straightforward. I do like. I don't know how to really put this into words, but I like the joy of it. I like the great songs. I mean, the guy wrote great songs.
Yeah,
it's not. There's plenty of things that are more challenging and less accessible, but there's so much that is accessible. There's so much that is for everyone. And, as a young, childish person, and I'm now an old childish person, the humor.
Yeah.
And then you start diving in, and you're like, just the musicianship is so exciting, and you go through that phase as a young musician where you start getting into, incredible musicianship. And I think that, for a lot of my generation, that probably started with Rush, right? That's the first time you're like, whoa, what's going on here? But I also love the bite of it. I like art that can offend or gets into the grit and pushes that envelope. I really like that in all areas of art, especially when like I said, when we go see theater, it's the stuff that makes me uncomfortable. That's my favorite stuff. Not that Zappa makes me, but you know what I mean. Just that he'll shock you at times, and it's good to be sort of shocked into paying attention.
I remember when I when I was a teenager, my mom had to move my car in the driveway one day, and she cranks up the car, and I had apparently left Thingfish in my CD player. And she walked back in the house, and she just looked at me and she said, "What in the hell are you listening to?" It was a great moment. I still think about that all the time.
That's great. And she sort of stuck with it, right? She's like, how do I change this?
Yeah, right.
And it's louder than she expected. That's good stuff.
It's great.
I always thought the Grapes had the best, like Deadhead, type of name. Where if you liked us, you were a grape nut.
But not like a 70-year-old's breakfast grape nut. No. Maybe.
Well, at this point, we're all about to hit 60, so.
All high in fiber. That's great.
We were high.
I know.
We're not doing this all day? This isn't all day?
This is part 1 of 6 today.
I hope this was useful and that anyone would want to listen to it. I
just wanted to, and what's been cool about it is that there typically is a little bit of a formula and a format to it.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like our relationship is like that. And I just wanted it to be different. And I wanted it, I didn't want to go through the same kind of template of questions that I tend to ask people.
It's bizarre to me that the times that we've spent in person are probably on one hand.
But it is. That's precisely what I was thinking leading up to this. That you and I have spent more time today doing this than we've ever done before. But
except for the when we did that day at the
rehearsal.
But I'm definitely going to continue to show you this project. Mm-hmm. I would love for you to be involved in any way. I know we're far apart now, and I'm far apart from everyone in my musical world. I have no musical world up here that I've been part of, so it's all going to probably happen down south if it happens at all. But I'm going to keep plugging away at this. This is my final passion project musically. It's really kind of the end of my musical career, which is not a sad thing. It's just what is, and I really want to make this happen. And if there's one thing that I will do, is I will do what I say I'm going to do. If I say I'm going to do a project, it will happen, even if it costs me a ridiculous amount of money that I don't have. I'll make it happen. So this thing will happen, and I really would love for you to be a part of this. You and that other idiot we're friends with.
Oh, what's his name? Yeah. I think and without getting too sappy about it, I've had such admiration for you from afar for so long. And when we finally hung out and played some music together, it was like, yeah, it's everything I hoped it would be.
It's him. It's if he loves you and you love him, like I'll love anybody that he loves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or at least give them a chance. And but he is. There's really no one. I hope you don't put this out because he doesn't need that kind of big head stuff. He just. If you don't love Brooks Smith, I don't want to know you.
Yeah, I will. I know. I get it, and I will say too. One of the biggest things that I learned from him, just by observation, was the personality and the approach and the vibe you bring to a gig sets the tone for everyone else in the band. He's always just so laid back about it. There's never any pretense. He just makes everyone feel at ease, and it's always about the hang. And it's never about what we're about to do. And I think musicians have a tendency to get up their own ass about it a little bit. Excuse me for saying that, but I learned that from him, to just show up and make it pleasurable for everyone.
What I got from him, especially when we were on the road together and I really spent time with him, was he changed me. I used to take myself seriously. Mm-hmm. And I stopped doing that in a good way, in the best way. I learned to be much more self-deprecating and honest with myself, rather than like he helped me get out of the fog of ego.
Yeah.
And I was much more content being, knowing I know I'm an idiot, and I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have these texts with him too that are just ridiculously stupid.
Ridiculous. Rewriting songs.
Yes. Oh, the songs, the parodies that we've written, it's every day. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've missed a day of communication in 30, not a day.
Yeah. Most of which those lyrics will never be able to quote anywhere.
No, not outside of an enclosed room with no recording devices whatsoever.
That's it. I'll never think of the song Day Tripper again without thinking of you guys.
Oh, there's so many. Ask him about my Uncle John's band sometime. It's good stuff.
Okay.
We still quote songs, parodies that we wrote 20 years ago that still make us laugh. My favorite of his ever is Rock the Boat, which I will not repeat on this podcast.
Okay.
But man, it is funny.
I just hate I'm going to edit all of this out, and he's not going to hear any of it, right?
Throw a few things in there about it.
Yeah.
We said some nice things.
Every time we say his name, that's the only thing I'll leave in. Brooks Smith, and everything else will be taken out.
Yeah. In fact, edit really terrible things in there. When is he doing this? Or have you done this with him?
So we keep talking about it. I'm going to pin him down and get a date. Here's the problem with it. I kind of think he doesn't want to do it because I don't think he wants to talk about himself.
Absolutely. 100%.
And I want him to be on here because I want people to experience what we both know about him. But I'm not
sure that'll come out.
Yep. So part of me wants to say to him, there's no pressure if you don't want to do this. It's okay. I'd like for you to.
Yeah. If I were putting out a podcast of Brooks Smith, it would be about, what you're probably going to do anyway is his musical history, and I would intertwine it with his music, which is completely unique and great. I can't think of someone I know more that has his own sound than him. His voice and his style of writing and all of that. And
Yeah,
I don't like him either.
Yeah. Same as you. Can't stand you.
My friend, I'm so glad we connected, and thank you for writing back about music. No one listens, and so it means so much because I put so much, time and effort and heart into it, and I know and that's part of why I want to do this show, because I want to do something that actually will be seen, and I don't want people to show up with a beer in their hand and a phone in their hand. I want people to sit down.
That's it.
And pay attention, and that's the piece that I want to create, something that will run for days and days and days.
Yeah,
that's what I want. And so.
I talk about passion project. I'll just say this quickly before we finish.
Yeah.
That's what this is for me. I'm leaving a document for my children, so someday they'll know what Dad did for all of those years, and it's the people that meant the most to me, and the people that influenced me the most, and that's what this is all about.
Keep going, man. Just keep building that library. It's exciting stuff.
So I
do a
get
good job. I've listened to them all. They're really great.
Well, this one's going to be the best.
So won't.
They're going to have a Pulitzer Prize in podcasting now because of this episode.
People will be like, who? and why? He just rambles. Nothing he said, nothing was coherent. I learned nothing.
All right. Enjoy your day. Love to you.
Love to you.
All right.
And I'll be in touch soon.
Okay. Sounds good.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Bandwich Tapes. I'm your host, Brad Williams. The show's theme is called Placation and was written by Mark Mundy. Drop me a line at the email address, thebandwichtapes@gmail.com. Make sure to subscribe to receive new episodes of the podcast. And while you're at it, please tell someone else about the show. Thanks for listening.